Hi everybody, welcome back to Diabolical Garage. Today we're going to show you how to take the hardtop off. I get asked this a lot before we put a slipstream in, so I figured before we pull the top off, we'd just show you how easy it is to do. So main thing is you want to pull your wire connection here off the top of the hardtop, and then your wiper motor tubing. Once you get that disconnected, you just have your 3 bolts on both sides, left and right, and one at the top of the roll bar right above the front seats, and the whole top will come off at that point. So we're going to use this to help lift so you can see how easy this is, and then we will put the top back on when the slipstream's all done. All right, we're going to lift her up. Okay, so we're clear. Rotate this in a little bit, pull it. Might have to put the extensions on. Go a little higher. And we're just going to pull her out. So that's all there is to it, to pull your top off. Okay, so this is the slipstream kit, how it comes to you. There's an outer box, then this tray that goes in. We just kind of like to show you how everything gets put in. So that way, if you ever want to use it, keep your box and say take your parts to a local powder coater down the road if you want to change colors on it, things like that. This is just kind of a way to protect it. This is the tail skin. It's on its own foam. The small folding top. Piece of cardboard. The large folding top sits over the inner box. That does is it kind of clamshells around it. So we'll do this, we'll pull this off. First thing you've got is the skins assembly with the access panel, decal, access spacer bar, the giraffe bracket, all of the roll bar fillers, and the end piece for the hardtop. If you're running hardtop, for the skin corners, you leave those corners off if you're running the soft top for the soft top plastic corners. So they all go here. Then on the inside, you've got rubber seals, hard rubber for the side frames, 2-inch and 1/2-inch foam, 10 quick release pins, large hinge bag, this is for the folding top, small hinge assembly, lock assembly, this is for the access panel, bolts, nuts, and washers for the main assembly. Floor brackets, left and right. This one is for a JLU with subwoofer. So there are 2 different brackets for the left and the right. There is the fork plates that come in, that goes under the skin. The multi-bend bracket specifically for the subwoofer. The side frames and the 90-degree tie-down rails. The vertical frame rails. And then these are your wing walls. There's a left side and a right side. So the one for the subwoofer is a skinny one, more like a hockey stick that sits here. All that fits inside this large foam block. So that way it keeps everything from moving around on it. So we'll just kind of close this back up. And then the last item inside is your center wall. This one is for the subwoofer for the JLU, so it is 2 inches shorter than a standard non-sub JLU wall. And then the inner foam and everything. So, and you can reuse the foam any way you want, stuff like that. But this is your slipstream kit with all 26 parts, hardware, foam, rubber, everything. Hey everybody, we are going to do an install on a JLU with subwoofer. So we've already prepped it, took the hardtop off. I've got D-ring bolts out. They don't have to come out for this installation. It's out for us to put the slide floor in when we're all done. But lay your seats down, get everything kind of out of the way. First step you'll do is take a piece of tape and put it on both sides of your latch plate and kind of mark it where center is on it, so that way when you go to close your tailgate up as one of the last steps, you've got everything aligned where it needs to go. So we are going to pop this off. We're going to loosen this up. You don't have to remove it, just loosen it up. And the first step we're going to do is take our giraffe bracket, which looks like a giraffe, and we're going to set him right in here facing forward. Get it about body tub height, and then just kind of tighten these up just to kind of hold it. That'll be one of the last adjustments we do in the whole system. So now that you've got that, that's the first step. The next one is the multi-bend bracket, which will go down in this corner right here. This is the multi-bend bracket. It actually sits underneath your panel right here, so you can stick it in place, find the hole so it lines up, and that's where that's going to go. And we will drop a piece in there. Now, one thing, I'll show you a little tip, is if you pull this out, pull your panel out, if you find that you have a piece of plastic that's kind of holding it up, the first gens came out, had a different plastic shape right here on the wall. But this is going to sit just like this, and it might sit up 1/8 of an inch. That's okay, but you want this all sitting flat, and it's sitting on the flat plastic right now. So that's in a good position right there. So we'll put this back in place and leave that for right now. Put this in just so it kind of holds it. And then we'll get everything adjusted at the end, but that's gonna be in place right now to kind of hold that. So I'm going to grab a couple of bolts just to put them back in to hold it for right now, and then we'll move on to the next step. Okay, so the next thing that we can do is put the floor brackets in. There's two different shaped ones here. This is going to be for the driver's side. It's going to go right there. This odd-shaped one, this is specifically for the JLU with the subwoofer, so it moves everything over because of the size of the subwoofer. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to loosen these up and drop these in place just so they stand there. We'll tighten all this stuff up as one of the last steps, so we want to set these in place. You can see how that will sit right on that plastic right there. Some of you may have the leather seat package, which has the enclosure that covers all this up. So that has little clips underneath it that the panel clips down into, where the channel runs left to right. What you'll have to do is you'll have to pop 1 or 2 clips, and I say only pop as many as you need, on both sides, just so you can get access at this nut to pull it off and to put the bracket in place. That floor panel sits forward of this, so it'll sit over and not impede the wall bracket where it comes vertical. So we're going to leave that just like that right now, and we'll come over here and we'll start working on the side frames and the skins. Okay, so we're gonna use the back of the Jeep right now since all my stuff is spread out on the table, but you can do all of this stuff on a table. It's pretty simple. These are the skins. This is the driver's side. This has the access hole for your wire harness and your wiper tube to come up through. So if you set them flat like this, so they're facing each other, this is your roll bar cutout. This is the outer body tub section with all the different holes. This one shows the 4-door bolt holes are here, here, and if you have the Sky One here, this is a hardtop pin alignment hole for that pin that sticks down on your hardtop when you pull it off. And then this is for the 2 doors if you have the skin that has both 4-door and 2-door skin capability. So when you have it in this position right here, go ahead, well, we're gonna put a couple of pieces on first. Let's go with your corner brackets. So since this is a hard top, this is the corner skin piece, that this goes just like this. It will bolt onto here and it will cover this corner for when you're running the hard top. Now, when you don't have a hard top, and where this sits on, if you're running a soft top, this is where your factory corner piece goes, or for those with a best top corner piece, it's a plastic piece that sits here that your crossbar goes in and bolts right there. So you leave this piece off if you're running a soft top, and you can also leave this piece off if you're running the Sky One, because it will pick up this hole and this hole for bolting everything down. And that way you don't have to worry about drilling a hole for the Sky One. That would be right here. If you want to drill your own hole and have the whole piece there, totally up to you for the Sky One, but it's not made for that. We made it as the bulk of all the hard tops are non-Sky One, so that way it's not an extra bolt hole in here. So we're gonna pull this down and we're gonna put these on. With bolt, nut, and washer. You can bring a bunch over and have them sitting here if you need to. So the way that these go is you want the bent tab to go underneath. So that would come over on this side. You put a bolt, flip it over, put yourself a washer, nut. All the nuts are Nylock self-locking nuts. So you don't have to torque them down. It's all hand tight. So with that done, now you see that that's a clean look across the back end of your wing skins. So this piece will go like that. Again, if you're running a soft top, leave them off. If you flip between hard top and soft top through the year, if you want to leave them off, you can also. That way you're not having to pull your skins up to get access to this bolt to take it off. So those are on nice and tight. Then you've got your wire cover, and you know it's made to sit right here with a bolt in it. You can move it 90 degrees and bolt it on. You can leave it 180, or you can leave it completely off if you're running your hardtop all the time. It's when you want to go top off or soft top and you want that completely closed off, you can put that on. You can also do it from the underneath side if you want, so it looks like that when it's bolted in. I've had people do it both ways. If you want, you can take an extra piece of foam and put that on here so it makes it easier to slide. We'll do that. We'll do that as our last step after we put the foam on. So an extra piece, we'll just cut it to fit and it'll sit nice and flush on there. So we'll just set that to the side. So the next thing to do is to do your foam. So with these in the normal position right here, we want to flip them over, and this is where we put the 2-inch wide foam to protect the body tub when everything's sitting on it. And you only do from the outside edge around. You don't do across the front. Older written instructions done by somebody else that did them for us may have a picture showing that, but you do not put it across here. It's only on the outside edge where the skins sit on your body tub. So all you're going to do is grab your 2-inch foam, and we're going to cut it to fit all the way down. So what I like to do is I'll set it on here, hold it at the edge, feel the edge right here, hold it tight, and kind of bend it around and push. That way it kind of shows me an indentation of where to cut it. And if you cut it short, it's okay. It's just a protective measure to help out. So what I'm going to do is peel and stick this. Go all the way to the edge. And if anything, just inside the edge, about 1/8 of an inch. And follow your edge down. Just like that. And if you want, you can do these pieces individually, or when you're done, take a razor blade and cut that, so when you do go to pull that piece out, it comes out easier and it's not stuck to it. So we're going to do the same thing on this side. I'll get back and make a straight cut. Right down there, follow it down, squeeze it, stamp it. I've done this a few times. Put it right about at the edge. Follow your edge. You can peel it up if you need to. If you get it off a little bit. Pretty much spot on right at that point. Okay? So now what we'll do is we'll do this little filler right there. Doesn't have to be perfect. You just want to cover the bulk of it when the hardtop's sitting on it. So just like that. We'll do the other side. Cut right there. So that sits just like that. And like I said, you've got a little bit left over, so you can do the underside of this. Now I've got corners there, so we'll do a little trim like that. See how this looks on it. It's pretty good. Covers pretty much the bulk of all of it. So there's your cover that will end up going on there. So like I said, a little tip once you get to this point is we'll take and cut this so that if you're switching between your hardtop and your soft top through the year and you want to pull this panel off by just pulling that bolt, we're going to cut that foam so it's a nice straight edge. So let me grab the razor blade right here and just kind of be careful how you're doing it. You just want to score it so that way when you do go to pull it off, you can see that it cut right there, okay? Do the same thing on the other side. So you can see that worked out for that right there too. So that way it comes off nice and easy when you go to pull it at the end of the season when you're changing tops. So we'll flip them back over. And we'll put this guy on right here. You can see how this sits up a little bit. So with doing that, what I like to do is take a couple of extra washers to be the same height. This makes that easy to spin, so you don't have to loosen anything up when you want to move it. So if you put a couple of washers under it, so it's about the same thickness as the foam, then do your nut and washer on the underside. This allows you to spin it as you need it. So get it to where it's a little snug, and then you can just move it out of the way like that when you need to, and it's not going to scratch your powder coat because it's the foam that's on the powder coat. So we're going to leave it right in that position right there, and we're going to move on to the next step, which is, depending on which top you have, you don't have to cut out the two-door hole. We want to do the center hardtop bolt, the forward hardtop, or the rear hardtop bolt, and the hardtop alignment pinhole. So with a pair of scissors or knife, whatever you've got, just be careful, don't cut yourself, is cut these out. If you're doing the Sky One roof hole for the alignment pin, make sure you get all the foam out of there, because the alignment pin is very long and it's as wide as the hole. It is a tight fit. So make sure you get that nice and smooth when you cut that out. And if you're running a soft top, you don't have to pull any of the holes if you don't want to. That way this will eventually just dry out the adhesive, and it will keep a nice clean look for all of it. I don't know if you can hear that, but outside we got a couple of worker bees working on the roof. So that one's done. We'll come over and we'll do this side. So I'm just using scissors to kind of puncture it and then peel it out by hand. You can do whatever you want, razor blade, knife, whatever, just be careful. Sticking to my finger. So that's the alignment pinhole. This is the rear hardtop, standard hardtop bolt. On a Sky One, this is your side panel alignment hole, and that's your rear hardtop bolt, where the other one is right about here. So got that out, got that out. We'll do this front one right here. Okay, it's basically just so you can get the bolts down in it for your hardtop. So we'll pull this stuff out of the way. And then the next step is fork plates. These are the fork plates. What they do is they bolt to the underside of the skins, and when they're in place, they actually go under the body tub, between the body tub and the plastic, right about like that, and the skins pinch on the body tub, and these are the bolts to tighten it up. This keeps people from prying the sides of your skins up when you're topless, thinking that they can get in through this way. This is kind of our proprietary design that gives another security aspect to a full slipstream system. So that's what makes this kind of cool. So we're gonna attach these to the bottom of the skins first. With the subwoofer, you're gonna put them in place on the skin first as an assembly, and about 2/3 of the way tight, because you won't be able to get at this forward bolt because of the size of the subwoofer, and you won't be able to get at the forward wall bolt. So we're going to put the wing wall on with that bolt completely tight, and 2/3 of the way tight on your 2 bolts for your fork plates when we get to that step. Okay, so I'm going to put these on right now since we're dealing with the skins right now. If you're watching the written instructions might go to the wing wall first, then to the side frames and the skins. I'm just kind of jumping onto this right now. It's all the same steps. So when the skins go on and the fork plates, you want it to where when it's in place, there's a gap because of how the bends are on it. So you're gonna have a gap like that of about 1/4 of an inch. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna line up first bolt right here, push it through, hold it with your thumb, put a washer and a nut on. And like I said, we're gonna go about 2/3 of the way tight. If you find out it's too tight when you put it on, it's too hard to get in, loosen it up. If you find that it's a little loose where you can tap on the top of the bolt and you feel it moving and you want to tighten it up, pull the skin back off and just tighten it up just a little bit more. Like I said, go about 2/3 of the way snug so you get a little bit of movement on this. So you've got the ability to put it in at an angle. Tighten it up a little bit more. Okay, we're gonna leave that one like it is right there. This one, you'll be able to get your hand up in here at this one, also at this. But because we're here right now, we'll go ahead and put them on. Totally up to you if you want to put them on separately. It's like, again, you want to have this gap underneath with this sitting flat on the underside of the skin. So with that, like that, put a washer on, go with your nut, same thing. Tighten it up about 2/3 of the way. This one will be easier to tighten up because you will have full access to it from underneath because it doesn't have the subwoofer in the way. Okay, so I'm going to set these on the table right now. We're going to come back to that in just a second. So now we're going to work on our wing walls and our vertical frames. That's these two guys right here. So let's cut this off. We pride ourselves on our packing. We want to make sure it gets to you safely. We ship worldwide, so when we're sending to Saudi Arabia, Romania, New Zealand, Australia, Guam, all that we did last year, we want to make sure that it gets there safe and secure. So this is the wing wall that comes around the shape of the subwoofer, just like that. Pretty much covers the bulk of it. It does have a little bit of gaps. That's okay. That's how we wanted it. So you've got a little bit of ease of installation. So we'll set that right there. The other side comes in just like this, up there. So what we're going to do now is we're going to put the vertical frames on. And the vertical frames, they allow for the wall to come up with the quick release pins going through the holes and being up against the frame itself. So the way that we want to do this is if you put your left and your right walls like this, put the flat part with the 3 bolt holes on top of your wing wall. And you want to have the bottom as where you've got an opening on this flat portion here, because that allows the top or the wall to fold flat and not interfere with this. So I need a few more washers and nuts. So we don't want to put the bottom in because that's going to hook to the brackets. We don't want to put the top ones in because that's the side frames, but you want to do the middle and the top of this unit right here. So put a nut in, or a bolt, washer and nut. Go almost snug with it, just so it pretty much makes it easier to hold this and do the upper one. And once you get both of these in, you can tighten them all the way down 100%. Okay? Okay, so we've got the subwoofer side done, just those 2 bolts for now. We're going to come over and we're going to do the same thing on the driver's side. Bolt, nut, and washer. Yes, this is a lot of bolts that puts the whole system together, but that's what creates the system and the functionality with it. Each part has its own particular requirement that allows for a specific function. Like if we tried to do this multiple bolts right here and eliminate these frames, you know, you might say, what about just having a single bend here and there to put the pins through? That's not enough structure to hold the pins in place. You need about 1 inch gap, so you've got more points of connection for a pin. So that's why that's set up that way. So we're going to tighten this all the way down. Tighten this one all the way down. And then we're going to flip it over both of them. And we're going to take our 1/2-inch foam strip and we're going to put it on the flat portion right here. This way, when you fold your wall up, you don't have metal on metal. It's going to be protected by foam, and it will take away any noise or rattling. So I'll just put that right there. Tape's a little sticky. Figure out about how long you need. And I like to put closer from this edge over, so that way it hits the whole top versus putting it up against, tight against the wall there. Extra piece of tape holding that on. So like I said, right along this edge, and push it on so it's nice and tight. And then we're going to do the same thing. I'll spin this one around so you can see it. Same thing. Right about there to there. Right along that outside edge. A little bit long, sort of trim it. Get the scraps out. So, that is your subwoofer side. This is your driver side. So, just so you see how this goes, on both floor brackets, it's a slotted hole, so that way you can raise the wall up for more continuity going level across. So what I want to do is I just want to set this in initially. I can do this on this side. I can't do it on the subwoofer side yet because we need to put it together as an assembly. So let me get this one started. And I just want to go relatively snug with it, so we can still have a little bit of movement on it for adjustability. You can see that, you know, it will go up and down about 1/4 of an inch. So that's nice to make sure that we're nice and flat across the top. So leave that in place just like that, and we'll move on to the next step, where what we're going to do is take the passenger skin, wing skin, and what we want to do is we want to put that forward bolt right there. We want to put that all the way in tight. So what we'll do is I'll do this upside down. So this way it's a little easier for you to see. And you're going to take your wall and set it right like that. So you can see the bolt coming up through. We want to drop the washer and the nut. This is the one that, because of the shape of the subwoofer, you won't be able to get to. If you don't have a subwoofer, you can get to it just as easy as you can with that one over there. So what I want to do is I want to tighten this all the way down. So make sure it's nice and lined up with your edge right there. And tighten it all the way. So that is your assembly between your wing wall and your wing skin and how it's going to sit. And you might ask the question, well, it looks like it's sitting off center. Well, that's because the wall is 2 inches shorter because of the subwoofer size than what the normal wall is that matches the same width as the folding top. So the folding top is the same full width. That's why it looks like this. It'll all go together just nice and easy. So what we want to do is now we want to put this in as an assembly. So what you're going to do is you're going to come around your roll bar. Be careful. So kind of drop it like this. Be careful with your edges. Can you get that, Brandon? Spare hand. Go around your seat belt. Get that out of the way. And see, this is going to sit just like this. But we need to get the fork plate underneath. So that's where you kind of tilt this at an angle. Grab your fork plate and locate it on your body tub from the underneath side. It's going to be hard to see. You might have to get the light on that. I can get my back corner under, but the top is going to be a little tight, so I'm going to have to loosen this up a little bit. So I'll do it in this position right here. Grab my socket, and I'm just going to lift it up and loosen this bolt a little bit to get a little bit more gap on my fork plate. So when I want to set it under, I want to feel that edge grab and the back edge. And there are 2 different heights on the body tub, so know that. So I'm going to pull this back to where I'm more centered where the hole is. So push down right there, push down right here, and then pop it down. You can see, you can feel that it's tight. So you can come up here and you can try and lift this up, and you can't because the fork plate is underneath the body tub. So that's almost perfect tight right there. If you want, you can get in here and tighten this one up a little bit more. You can see that bolt moving just a little. Do it now before you put the side frame in. It's easier to reach in there with your small socket, and you can tighten that up to where you really feel it get nice and flat. You still have the ability to move it if you need to. But now also look at your holes. Make sure you've got your hole aligned, hole there, and your pinhole right here. So that's pretty much spot on right there. So now if you come around to the front, this is where you can drop your floor bracket in to your wing hole. If I can find where that's at. Raise that up a little, move that over. I know I'm close. It's because I don't have my face over there to see it. There we go. Then put your washer and your nut on. Yeah, sometimes it helps having small fingers. I want to tighten this up. Not all the way, because I want to be able to move this floor bracket if we need to move it over a little. So you want to get it to where it's just starting to catch a little bit, but it's still a little bit loose, so you can move it. Not much, just a little bit. And now you've got, that's the hardest part on a JLU install, is that right there. So the next thing we're going to work on is the side frames. So that's these 2 long guys right here. So again, we'll set them down here. You want to have the gap from the flat space at the forward end. This allows the folding top to come up against the seats when you fold it all the way up. So right side, left side. just like this with a gap up front. And we're going to do the same thing with putting a foam down. Now what we just started to do is these are hard rubber that are pre-cut strips to go right here, same place. Hard rubber won't crush down as much. We found that the folding top, after time, the weight of it will crush that squeezable foam down a little bit more, and you might get a little bit of noise from your pins. So if you go with the hard rubber first, and then if you find that you still have a little bit of gap where the pins move, then you can do a layer of the 1/2 inch squeeze crush foam on top of this. But this gives a hard structure substrate as your initial layer. So peel and stick, find the edge. Like I said, I like staying to the outside edge. So it's going to go just like that. Grab the other one, do the other side. Squeeze it down a little bit. And then they're ready to install. So, in this position, I'll do this side first so it's easier for you to see from that angle. This fits right into the top right there. So something that makes it a little bit easier to hold it is if you put this over the giraffe on this end and let it sit while you grab a bolt, nut, and washer. So you're going to bring the bolt from the front through so it goes through the hole in the forward bend. This is where, you might have to figure out which way works best for you to hold a nut and washer on. You can also push the bolt through a little bit so you can spin it before the carriage bolt square shank hits the hole and doesn't spin for you. So this is where I like to grab an extension. This is just a simple 7/16 socket I've been using. And you can tighten this all the way up, all the way tight. Put your thumb under it and push it so it stays all the way up. Just like that, okay? So that's on here, that's holding on the corner. There is a bolt that coincides with the giraffe head. If you want, you can put that in now. It's easier to do before you put the skin over the top of it on this side. It's just, again, simple washer and nut underneath. This is where you'll use a 7/16 wrench to put it on. And this, take it all the way down, not tight. You want it loose because this is one of our final adjustments in the height, is at the giraffe. I'm sure you can hear the truck outside moving with the backup horn going. The joys of working in a facility right next to Terraflex and other contractors. Okay, so that's almost tight. I still have a little bit of mobility with it, so that's a good thing. So we'll put the other side on and then we'll do this skin, okay? Actually, let's do that skin now since we're over here. So you can see that this is sitting up a little bit higher, so I'm going to loosen this up just to drop it down. About even with the body tub. It's pretty good right there. So we're going to take the skin And again, this is going to go around the roll bar, just like this. And the fork plate is going to go underneath. Now, one thing that's going to be easier to do right now is grab your wire harness and your tube and push it up. I just noticed that I put that on wrong. So even I make mistakes. So my fork plate is backwards. I've had people actually call me and say it didn't fit, and this was exactly what happened. So even happens to the guy who designed it. Getting in a hurry to show how this goes. If you caught this in the earlier step and fixed it, good on you. Obviously, my camera operator didn't catch it either, or he would have given me the sign. So all we're gonna do is we are gonna flip that around. I noticed it being in the way because it was covering part of my access hole for the wire harness. Okay, so again, we're going to slide it around the roll bar. And before we drop it into place, we want to push this up and through. So we don't have to try and do that when everything's down tight and there's less space in here for your hands. So get this almost lined up with the hole this way. Reach in and pull your fork plate down so it gets underneath that body lip there. And you can see where Brandon, if you want to come through, you can see that. Let me grab my phone for a light. Give you a little bit more light so you can see what we're talking about. See how the fork plate will go under the body tub right there. So what we want to do is pull that down and push that in. It's a little bit thicker body tub towards the middle of the Jeep than what it is in the back corner. So I'm just going to grab it with my finger, and as we try and push this down, it will slide right in. And what I like to do is come over here to the outside and make sure I've got good alignment with my alignment pin by using my finger and pushing it down, and make sure the bolt holes line up. We oversize these bolt holes on purpose so that way you've got a little bit of adjustability when you're putting everything together. So that's a good spot right there. So I am going to tighten them up. Not all the way, but just get them snug. This will be one of the last things, because if we need to adjust the width for the folding top, this is where you do it. Okay, so that's snug and in place. This lines up sitting over the frame. So the next thing that we'll do is we'll move to the wall assembly. And then, got to do my camera operator is showing me his finger pointing to this frame. So same thing, you're going to stick it into the slot that is in the wing wall right there, and then set it over the top of this just so it helps kind of hold that open. And you can see where this pops up and in. So we're going to take a bolt, push it through. I'm going to ask Brandon to put his finger there and hold it. This is where you have a really tight gap with the subwoofer. So if you can, I'm going to climb up and in. This is one time where you can actually get in and this will help. is I'll hold the bolt, and if you can hold the washer and the nut up in to where you get it on the edge of the bolt, just hold it and spin the bolt to start tightening the nut first. Just like that. Till it catches on the nylock, then push it all the way in. Take your socket and your extension and tighten that one all the way down. So again, it's tight up in here, so if you've got smaller sockets, that helps, or a long extension, that helps. So it gets a little noisy because you got moving pieces and your ratchet can get up inside your frame. It's okay. But you want to tighten this one all the way up. See, this is where that forward bolt right there, you wouldn't be able to get into it. That's why we put the assembly together first. Okay, that's snug. Now what I'll do is I'll move around, lift this up so the multi-bend bracket goes on the outside of the frame, if you want to come all the way around and see it. So there's your multi-bend bracket. This needs to be on the outside of the frame. So locate your hole that's straight up, which is right about there. Put your bolt through. Find that hole right there. That's where you're going to connect to. So from up in here, this is where it's a little bit tight. We had to do the multi-bend bracket this way because of the plastic body panel around the subwoofer sticks out all the way to the back of the tailgate. So that made us have to do this bend right here, and we didn't do it lower because that would block you getting your hand up in here to tighten. So this is where, again, you take your 7/16 wrench, and it might just be, you know, a half a turn at a time. But, you know, this one, go snug with it, not all the way tight, because see how the bolt moves? It's also a slotted hole, so you've got a little bit of movement. You know, what looks like 1/8 of an inch might not seem like a lot, but it is when you want to get the perfect fit with your tailgate. So
and don't use a ratcheting wrench.
yeah, don't use a ratcheting wrench, because by the time the bolt gets all the way stuck out, you won't be able to pull the ratcheting wrench out. So if you've got a ratcheting dog bone, don't use it. So that's pretty snug right there. You can see that this is straight up and down. This will eventually get pushed in and tighten up with all these bolts. So I need a drink break, so I'm going to take a drink break, and then we're going to start working on the center wall panel, which we'll do on the table. Okay, so now we're going to work at the table. We're going to put the center wall panel together with the access panel. So let me move this guy out of the way. Those are our tie-down rails. So here's your lock assembly. We are going to take this apart. Now, you might get lucky. Oh. You can stick it through, and you might be able to just tap it into place through there. It is a tight fit, and it's a tight fit on purpose. We want it as a pressure fit. Now, if you want to take it all apart, you can, but you don't have to. I'm going to use a rubber mallet. If you want to take the screw off on the backside right now, you can. It's not a problem. Just make sure that when you take the tumbler out, you don't lose the parts. There's an O-ring seal on the back of it. But this will just pop into place. And in 2 years of doing this, we've never had an issue with not being able to thread the nut on the backside. So it doesn't damage the threads. If you do, call us, we'll help you out. That's not an issue. So we want to make sure that everything turns just like so. The only thing that we have to do is we have to flip this cam lever the other way so it's closer to here. So what we're going to do is I'm going to grab a screwdriver. I'll use my little guy here. Undo the screw on the back side. Like I said, there's an O-ring there, right there. So don't lose that. Just spin that around and keep your finger on the back side because you can push the tumbler out. And put the screw right back in. That's the quick and easy way to do it. So you can see how tight that is right there. That's what we want, okay? So we're gonna actually turn that so it's out of the way. The next step is, this is your spacer bar. It's gonna go down on these 2 holes right here. And then your access panel sits like this. Now we've had people that have looked at the wrong hinges to put on here. They look at the large hinges that go for the folding top thinking that's the hinges to go here. And just before they drill them out, they called us to say, hey, these don't fit. And we stopped them. So make sure you grab the 2 little hinges that are that size right there. These are the little guys that we're going to put in here, just like so. You can drop them down, then we'll flip this over. So if you hold it with your hand, get it, hold that too, flip it over, and that way you can put the small nuts and washers that are in this bag that says access panel miscellaneous hardware. Got that foam residue on my good scissors. Makes good scissors not feel so good. So we want to pull them out. All these little washer and nuts. We're going to put nut and washer on each one. Now you should be able to get a full turn on it before it tightens up with the nylock. If it goes on tight right away, you've got it cross-threaded. Back it off and wait till you can spin it to where it spins almost 1 full turn on it. That's how you know that you've got it threaded correctly. It's a little bit harder to reach the ones in here, so get my fingers out of the way, and you can see how that started just like that. Drop a washer. And we give extra nuts, bolts, and washers, so where this only requires 8, we try and give 10, so that way if by chance you drop one and you can't find it, you're not trying to figure out where you're going to go to pick one up. It is standard metric sizes for the 2 different size hinges. The regular bolts and nuts are 1/4 20s, so pretty standard. So I've got to grab a small wrench for this, but while I'm right here, in your bag is also a magnet. This magnet goes right across here and we use it as a strike plate for your cam lever. So it's never metal on metal, and the magnet's a hard enough material to take the ability of the cam lever and not damage it. So let me grab the wrench for this real quick. I don't have it on the table. So I'm back. This will be an 8mm wrench to get in here. If you want, you can do sockets on the outside, you know, where it's easy accessible, but you won't be able to get down to there. So I'm going to switch back and forth and do each one of them. And again, these are hand tight. They are not torque, because torquing them, you could snap the posts on the hinges. So don't do that. Take your time. It just, you know, it just takes time. Snug on the back side, and hold these. Check them one more time. Okay, now what we're gonna do on this side, we want to put our 1/2" foam. So what I like to do is I like to come and do the top part first, and you want to do it to where you get about a 1/2 inch out, because you're going to run the 1/2 inch wide down the sides also. So you want to come right across the top of the opening, and then you want to do from the down at the bottom of the opening to the top. So put it right on the edge. of the opening. A little long, so we'll trim that. A little long on here, so I can trim that back just a little bit. That's just me. I like to be as close to perfect as I can. Right to the edge, right to the edge. Just like that. So this closes up nicely on it and it's not metal on metal. Take your key. And you're going to rotate your cam lever up. And if it's a little tight, that's okay. Push in on the lock to spin that up. Just like that. And now you're locked, and we're going to move to doing the install of the wall now. Okay, so we're back inside the Jeep now, and what we're going to do is we're going to set our wall in place inside the frame. Okay? A tip that I like to do is, so I have a good gap, so it folds nice and easy, is, so I'm not at the pinhole. Just above it, I want to put in a piece of cardboard. Make your own cardboard shims. Do the bottom one first. This is where, see how this is loose down here? You can actually get that in there. So that's at the very bottom for where the pin is. I'll use my shoulder to push that one. Stick them in like that. And I'm going to grab a couple of pins, quick release pin. Push the edge of the pin off of the edge. They're tight at first, very tight. And you want to push in from the bottom hole. And that foam's going to be really tight at first, okay? That's okay. So push it through. Here, I'll get these out of the way so I can show you with this down. You can see how that pin goes all the way through. And I'm going to put the clip on it just to hold it. I'm going to do the same thing with another pin at the top. Then we'll worry about our shim. So get the holes lined up. The walls are really tight when you first put them in. That's good. The pins are because of the crushed down foam. So then I want to do the same thing. Push the wall. Push a pin in. Do the same thing at the bottom. Like I said, pins go in really tight at first. That's okay. That's good. So now I've got a little bit of a gap over on this end, and that's okay because this wall is adjustable. I can pull that out. But I want to make sure that I'm not too tight at the top. So I'm going to use my body to kind of push this over a little bit and get a gap. Push that through. Do the same thing on this side. Push that. Get a little gap. At the bottom, use your hand to push the floor bracket over. Get a gap. And I've got a big gap on this side over here. That's okay, because I'm going to pull this bracket this way to close that gap up. And by doing that, I can then tighten this up a little bit more so it holds it in place. And this is a 3/4 inch bolt, so that's pretty easy to do from there. So I've got that. This is holding. This will open up a little bit from pushing this way. And these top corners are good. So I want to tighten up these bolts. So I'm going to grab the 3/4 inch wrench. socket. Like I said, I want to pull this one over because it's got a, you'll see that it's a little bit of a gap. Bigger gap at the bottom, that's okay. And I want to raise it up on that bolt right there. So let's get this part tightened first. So that's over and down. And then I'll climb in and do this side. It's a little bit tighter over here, but if I push this and the shim drops out, that lets me know that I've got a good gap there. And then I'll tighten that top bolt, or the bottom bolt on the wall where the floor bracket attaches to the wing wall. And I'll do that on both sides from underneath using my 7/16. With my extension will be easier reaching in there. You don't have a lot of movement when you got the seat right there on you, so that's good right there. So jump out, move around to the back, grab my extension, and then I'm going to do this bolt down here is the one I'm going to tighten all the way up. You can see how the pins go in, and they're nice and tight. So on this side, I want to make sure that we raise it up to the top of that slot in the floor. So I'll loosen it just a second just to make sure I'm all the way up. And then tighten it. And then I'll pull my shims out and it'll keep the same gap all the way now. Oops, hit that. Make sure you push these guys all the way down so they're nice and sticky and tight. Okay, so that's our wall assembly that's in. So now we're gonna do the top. So I'm gonna grab all 4 of my makeshift shims and we're gonna set the top panels in place before we put the bolts in the top. Set the top panel in place. You want the hinges to be towards the middle, towards the tailgate. It's okay that there's a gap right here. I'm not worried about that right now. That will be one of the last steps. But you can see that it might be a little bit tight, and that's because we don't have the frames tightened in yet. So what I want to do is, if you take a small screwdriver and you kind of put it in and you kind of open that up a little bit, be careful that you don't tear up the powder coat. Put 2 shims in. That'll hold a good opening gap for your top. So do the same thing on the other side. So now, with that gap like that, I want to take my tie-down rails, and the tie-down rails you don't have to put on if you don't want to. It's totally up to you. You'll see that there's 3 holes that are close together versus 2 that are further apart. The ones that are close together all go around the roll bar. So that means that one's this side, and you want to put the vertical portion close to the roll bar, because if you put it this way and have them on each opposite side, it's too tight for the top, and you'll also pinch your fingers folding your top. So put them like this, just set them in place for right now, and you go all the way to the forward bolt hole, And what I like to do is take one bolt hole, and this is where you get up in here just to get it aligned. So it's pretty close, means the wall's got to move just a little bit to get the bolt to pop down in. Let's see, I can't tell which way I got to go here. Joys of having to wear glasses. Which way? There we go. So once you get one down, put a nut and a washer on it to hold it. Just to get it started so it stays in place. Then do the same thing on the opposite side so you get good placement. And you might have to move the wall, which you can, and the frames to get all lined up to where the bolts drop down in. Ugh. Easier to do this from underneath. This is up against the subwoofer, so it's tight. So try and hold the washer and the nut together till you find that bolt hole. Yep. This is one of those things where you might have to switch between left hand, right hand, just to get it started. Start spinning it, get it on. There we go. Do the same thing with the back, because once you get two, one on the front, one on the back, all the other ones are going to line up. Because this is where if you got to move the frame to drop it in. But your shims keep at least a 1/16 of an inch gap between your folding panels, okay? So those are in like that. This is pretty snug. Once I pull that out, they will move easier, so that's a handy little tip. These are your roll bar fillers. There's one for each side. They slide in to this spot right here. This is where you want to get them in before you start putting everything tight in. Again, it's got one of the bolts that goes down through the frame. Figure out which way that's got to move. Can't do it because I can't see. That one's good there, so I'm gonna. There we go. Get it to where the square shank goes in the square hole. If anything, just get it started. You can pop it down in as you go along. Same thing down in here. Again, it's one of those things you gotta kind of move stuff around because it's 3 pieces of stuff coming all together. So you may have to get back up in and look down. Use a screwdriver if you have to kind of get the holes to line all the way up so where you can drop it down in. That's pretty much it. It's just off just a little bit on the bottom. There we go. So that one's in. That one's in. Nice and flat. What I'm going to do is I'm going to tighten these up since I got the one side done, and that way it'll hold it. So I'm going to take my 7/16 socket, reach under, get it snug. And one thing before I finish, I'm going to use my camera guy to hold this bolt. This is where it will hold the wall and the frame together. So if you see that this is pinching a little bit, loosen your bottom bolt on the floor bracket so you can raise it up in this spot right here. So this is one that, at least on this side, you can reach and get. This is the one that was on the subwoofer side that was extremely difficult. So whichever way you gotta turn to get this in and get started, go ahead and do that. So I notice there's a little bit of a gap there, so I'm going to loosen my bottom floor bracket so I can raise the wall up. I'm going to keep it loose right now while I tighten this top up where it will do a pinch on the body. So and if you find that you've got to loosen your wing skins a little bit, do that by your fork plates so you get a little bit of movement on the top of the body tub from your fork plates. So I want to tighten that one all the way up. I want to make sure my holes still line up for my bolts and my alignment pin. It's perfect. It's tight there. That's good. It actually pulled the wall up a little bit. So I'm going to tighten the floor bracket back up. If you have to, you can use a longer screwdriver at the bottom to pry it up if you need to raise it. That's not an issue. So that one's nice and tight. One on the other side's tight. So now I'm going to tighten these bolts up. Oops, popped up, push it back down. And put one in the end. Spin it so it drops down in. This is one of those you gotta stick your tongue out to the right direction to help you get that one in. So with this in, before I put these in, I want to, well, I can drop these down in. That's not an issue. That actually drops right in. I want to put the second half of the folding top in place just to make sure the back width is also good. So doing the same thing with the shims for the back panel. So let me get these in. Just dropping the bolts down in. Don't forget your roll bar filler on this side. Flip it over so it'll go right in there. Down past. Because it fills the gap in the wing skin right there. So that way it's nice and tight all the way across. sure I got one in there. Got one there. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to cut these two shims in half. So I've got two more for when I put this panel in. And drop it in. Actually looks really good. Put a shim there. Put a shim here. This will actually move over with moving the multi-bend bracket. So that's got a good gap. So with that in place, I'm going to tighten all these bolts up too. So that way it holds everything solid for the skins, the tie downs, and locking in the gap for the folding top. Okay, so I went ahead and tightened all these down on this side. With the shims in place, this makes it easy to push the tops together to put the large hinges and drop them down into place. Okay, pull the two bottom halves together so it's tight, and then do your nut and washers on the bottom here, and this will actually help hold it in place. Again, you should be able to get almost one full turn on your nylock nut before it tightens up. If it's tight right away when you first start threading it on, you're cross threading. Stop, take your time, slow down, pull it off, start again. And this will be a 10mm socket to tighten these up. And again, hand tight, not torquing, because that could make it too tight. $10mm. And you can see there's virtually no gap between the folding top. This side. And one thing I noticed with doing this, I still got to put that bolt in. So this is where it's good to make sure you're looking around, seeing which things that you have 100% done and which things you don't. So this one, this guy wants to move just a little bit to the outside. Again, it'll be tight, but it'll pull in as you tighten everything up. Everything's made to be a nice snug fit so that you don't have any worries about anybody breaking in and getting your stuff. And little things like this, just pop this seal to where it sits like that. You're good to go. All right, so with it in this position, I'm gonna pull these shims out because everything's tight now. And what I wanna do is we'll see if, since we got free movement here, this forward edge, we have an edge seal, which is this guy, peel and stick. We didn't have this about a year ago, as we found a manufacturer that could actually do it for us. So what you want to do is cut it to fit across, and this fills the gap between your folding top and the wall. So get this to pop off. And what you want to do is you want to make sure it's just below the edge of the top, so when the wall and the top come together, it squeezes and completely fills that gap. So I'm putting it right about the middle of the 1-inch thickness of the folding top. And you can pop that down, pull these out. That allows you to pull that, push it, and you can see now how nice and snug that is there. So now I want to check the pin fitment. So I'm going to put a couple of pins in, fold this up so it's easier to get to the front ones. Again, they're going to be tight at first, and you might have to push down to get them all the way in and get your hole lined up. That one's in. That one's a little bit harder because you're working around the subwoofer. Now the middle ones are a little bit tricky because there's a very little gap between the plastic on the roll bar and the side frame. So what you have to do is when you put it in, put your pin all the way in, and then slowly pull it out a little bit till you can get the wire to slide up between the metal and the plastic. So I'm gonna put that one in. Make sure my hole's lined up. Okay, so I'm touching the plastic, so I'm gonna push my pin and pull it out just a little bit to get that wire up between the metal and the plastic. And they just pop right in. And once you do it a couple of times, it does get easier, but that's what makes this nice about the system being pretty tight. So this guy, go in, push your pin against the plastic. Once it's there, kind of just slowly pull your pin out, and that'll pop into place. So then I do this for your two rear ones. And you can use your finger to push the pin. So push your finger or your thumb so it pops over the edge is easier when you go to put them in. So I'm going to push. So the only thing that we have loose right now is the top of the multi-bend bracket on the side frame and the giraffe, because we want to get the height correct for fitting in the tailgate. So the last thing we need is the tie-down rail, or the tie-down rail, tail skin. So this is 3 bolts. It goes upside down like this because this fits into the tailgate groove when you close your tailgate. So put a couple of bolts in. What you'll notice is the ends are notched. The reason for the notch on the JLU is if you're running a soft top, your mechanism that sits right here has a big bolt that sticks out. This notch allows you to fold the first panel past it. The second, it won't, it'll hit. But what you do is you just, since you've already pulled your middle pins to be able to fold it a second time, pull your front ones, push it forward and then up, and it clears it. It's about 30 seconds more of your time once you get used to doing that a couple of times. But if you're pulling the top completely out, it doesn't really matter. Pull all your 6 pins and then just pull the whole top out together. And what I like to do is I like to push this all the way up so you see the top of the tail skin pop up just above the height of your rear panel. So get one fairly snug and then move over to the others and tighten them up. It's a slotted hole, so it's adjustable. You can see that it sits all the way down here. I can push it up almost a ½ inch. So that's where I want it to be, is right there. Tighten them all the way up so they fit nice and tight. And then we're going to take our edge seal, which is this skinny one. And this is an edge seal for the tail skin. Put it on the edge, run it over, and then cut the extra off. This is to protect your tailgate when you close it so you never have metal on metal. You shouldn't anyways when you have the correct height. So I'm going to cut that right there. Sounds like our FedEx guy's here, so we'll take a quick break. Okay, so now that we got the tail skin edge seal on, we want to look. It's pretty much flush all the way across, which is pretty good. You want to look at your marks on your latch, tailgate latch assembly. Our holes are pretty much lined up. I can adjust this a little bit. But what I want to do is I want to see how it fits in the tailgate groove. So with seeing that this is almost perfect, I want to just tighten it up so it doesn't loosen. And I want to slowly close the tailgate. And we'll get a couple of different angles of this, to where when you go slow, you see where that's sitting in the groove. So you want to make sure that it closes and you didn't see any of this move. So you can see that this is pulling out a little bit. That means that's the latch has to be loosened and pushed forward, so it pulls the tailgate all the way in. So that's just one slight adjustment, but this is pretty much spot on. And you can see where I've got a little bit of movement if I didn't have the pins in for that to be a perfect fit. So I'm going to tighten up my giraffe. That's the giraffe head bolt. nice and tight with that. Okay, and that's what I mean is this has to go in a little bit. So I'm going to try and hold this right here as I loosen this. Just a little. And I want to push this in as far as I can, holding it up and still keeping my holes lined. So I'm going to do this quick. So again, come here, slowly close your tailgate. Make sure that it looks like it's not going to hit. You can see that it's fitting right above this line perfectly on that side. Same thing here. Still got to pull in just a little bit more. So, and you can see where this dropped down just a little bit angled down. So I'm going to grab a second set of hands just so this is a little bit easier to do. So I'm going to loosen the giraffe, and you're going to pull that up just a little bit and then hold it. Okay, so lift up just a little bit. You did? Mm-hmm. Okay. And I want to make sure that even if you got to tap it with a mallet or a hammer, that this goes all the way forward. And my holes line up. So that pulls the tailgate all the way in. So we're still good there. Always take it slow and double check your positions. Now it's tighter. So we're good to go. Okay, so now that everything's in tight, you've got the tailgate latch on the giraffe all tightened up, your multi-bend tightened up. Do a last cursory look. Make sure your holes line up here for your hardtop bolts to go down. If it's off a little bit, you can tap it, move it. You'll probably see to make sure you get the gaps around the roll bar plastic. On the JLU with sub, where I showed you putting the peel and stick foam on the front edge, because this wall is a little tighter because of the 2-inch difference in the wing wall, you will have to cut that back here about 2 inches. So that way the foam only is between the top and the wall assembly. Because the wing wall is a little bit thicker on its bend and everything. So look for that. The other thing that we do is we do supply 6 large bolts, washers, I'm sorry. These are black oxide stainless, and they're to help fill this gap if you're going topless and you want the clean look. These larger washers help with going on the bolt and then sitting here to cover the oversized holes we do, so that way it gives you a little bit of adjusting on the system itself. So there's 6 of these. Use them if you want. They're there as you need them. Another little trick I'll show you on the back end, we did it on this one to show you, is if you come back here and look, is with the hard rubber on, if you find that over time you have a little bit of movement in the pin, you can take your 1/2-inch crush foam, you got extra of it, and you can put it the whole length of it sitting on top of the hard rubber or just at where the pins are, and that'll completely tighten up your pin to where you won't have any rattle. So that you might get a little bit of difference in height, the way the top sits on it, the pins go in, and the way the holes line up, based on how everything is cut and bent over the course of about 100 kits at a time that go through. The pin holes are oversized holes, so they are meant to be bigger than the pins themselves. That's so if you go to do Line X or different powder coat over the black, those holes will slowly start to close up. This way you don't have to ever drill anything out with them being oversized. So other than that, go out and enjoy your Slipstream. Have fun with it. Send us pictures. We love to share. Thanks for watching.